Thank you very much for joining the session. So our earlier speaker, Professor Srinath Reddy, has almost set out the context for the session. He has also asked almost all the questions that I will be, or our panel will be discussing in much more detail, which vaccine, multiple doses, where from where, and so I'm very fortunate to have almost the 80% of the India's vaccine industry present in my panel. Of course, the topic of the session is manufacturing, securing vaccine for the country. But being in the midst of a COVID pandemic, most of our discussion will center around COVID-19 and the corona vaccine as expected. So we have a set of three speakers, who are the who's who of vaccine industry. First, Dr. Vishwamohan Katoch, the former Director General of ICMR, followed by Dr. Varaprasad Reddy, the vaccine man of India, who introduced the recombinant hepatitis B vaccine and set up this whole industry, followed by Dr. Krishna Allah, who is the man everyone is looking up to these days for the vaccine. After that, followed by a panel discussion. There are four other panelists also from Serum Institute, Biologically, Aurobindo, and I over to Dr. Vishwamohan Katoch.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you very much. I think this morning's tone is already set. What Dr. Renu Swarup alluded to, where we are, in terms of the positive efforts going on. And Professor Reddy has told us, he has put the questions that what we really need to address today, actually, for future. See, the first point which I would like to highlight, there are a number of issues which are to be addressed, which I'll just concentrate on a few of them. Because I'm not a manufacturing person, I'm not a supply chain person, but a former techno bureaucrat. I just have a bit global outlook. So I'll comment from that perspective. See, the pandemic has brought a focus on COVID. We are thinking of the vaccines for COVID. But then it's not the totally COVID, actually. Whatever we are existing, it will be total. So the scenario of the manufacturing, scenario of the supply will not be COVID-centric. The country will be handling 100 of other problems also at the same time. So you will be manufacturing other vaccines, you will be supplying the other manufacturings, you will do the other things also. This will be one of them. So when we think of anything, it is a total picture. Then the second point arises, which the question again is by Professor Reddy. Then which vaccine? At the moment, the scene appears positive. There will be a number of candidates. And again, what he said, the one which will be easily available to us. But then available to us, and then another question which he said, which we must think about, is the landscape of the country. How it will fit in the ecosystem of the country. So I think those all issues, the planning committee, our Niti Aayog, the Ministry of Health, and the state governments, and the government as such will be discussing through their own mechanisms, through their own debates. But a conference like this, brings a focus on these key issues, that this is our opinion. So I think if you're looking at the landscape of the country, the extremes of temperatures, the difficulties in the periphery of storage, supply, you will have to build on what you have at the moment. India has a supply system at the moment, and fairly robust system, but it takes to the last, may not work actually done in a routine manner. Because even the vaccines which work fairly good, and they are about 100 years actually, they're not really given to the people the way they should be given. Okay? So if until this is a campaign mode, people don't access it actually. It doesn't reach the people. So what will happen now actually? Will we connect with the people there so nicely, so that they'll become very efficient the way have become efficient in the COVID pandemic as such? Will that efficiency at the periphery will work? Okay. So the people connect, everything in a landscape total will work actually. That will have to be considered. Then the third point which I would like to highlight actually, that is the selectivity of populations to whom. So I think again the priorities are being discussed, and I think there is a common sense, which are under attack in the beginning. You think of them first. That's absolutely fine actually. So those priorities in terms of the healthcare, the security services, but then the third part is, in the same subcomponent is the institutions, like the industry, like the colleges, like the other essential establishments, which you want to work for the purpose of your safety, where you want them to succeed for the purpose of the economic prosperity. That all we require actually. So I think those all priorities will have to be based on that's the system. But then who will pay for it? Actually, the next point arises. Okay, we expect the government to chip in the maximum, and that as a social responsibility, they will do some. But then the question of insurance, then the question of the institutions taking care of their responsibilities, the industry taking care of their own employees, government taking care of their own employees. So I think the payment, the contribution from towards the costs involved, I think again this will have to be thought of from the beginning itself, and then people will be ready for it. They will do their job. I don't think they will not do their job, but then these will have to be debated. Even in the development part also, if you really commit that to the industry, this much we are going to purchase, I'm going to fund this part itself. This is a co-funding from the beginning itself. That will make it things much easier actually. So the institutions, the governments, I think they become they're placing advance order itself actually. They're doing that. But that all depend upon the possibility, which vaccine, for whom, where, and those choices which he said in the last, because they will depend upon that. People will decide what's to be done actually. That will not be a very easy thing, but that will have to be decided very carefully. And then the last point I want to make, say, it'll have to be choice and then a very, very closely monitored introduction. These are no unknown vaccines. We are thinking of positives at the moment to start with, but then the responsibility lies in terms of making a choice, making a decision. I think that okay, that becomes very, very critical, which we may not be thinking at the moment, but you'll have to decide that, because the decision of an unknown thing, the vaccine may have not a positive things to do, but it may have negative things to do also. So closely monitored exercise of its introduction into populations. So I think those magic bullets will have to be closely monitored. So I think this is the last point which as a scientist, as a doctor, I would like to make there, which will be important. They will be considering it, but this is not done very well in this country. This is the truth actually we must face. We do very efficiently when we are in a campaign mode, but after the campaign mode, we leave it up. But in today's in the environment, it is possible actually, because we have a capacity, we have a network. It's all doable actually, nothing difficult. So very impartial choices, impartially judgments, thinking of generating data same time. The phase 4 of the introduction into the different subgroups will have to be very closely monitored, and then keep on making choices, because the COVID vaccines will be required for a long time to come. I tell you, this is not a story of containing now itself. This war will not be over a short time. This will be a long drawn battle, and we want to save people for all times. So I think that's really one of my messages for this initial part of this discussion, which we are beginning. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kachor. It's been wonderful preface that you have set for this particular track of discussion, which theme is manufacturing and sourcing of vaccines to keep 1.35 billion people safe and healthy. And that's the theme of this particular track. And may I now invite Dr. Varaprasad to say a few words of his thoughts for this particular panel.
Namaste to everyone.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. I am not a scientist nor a life sciences student, but having associated with the healthcare industry for the last 30 years, I have some questions rather than solutions. Professor Srinath Reddy started talking about the issues, logistics. In fact, what all I thought, he made a mention of that. There may not be much for me to talk about it, but I only endorse what he said. there are many unanswered questions. There are many gaps. Unless we fill the gaps with proper answers, the logistics cannot be planned or executed. He just broke the lock of Pandora's box. Now I've opened the lid of the Pandora's box. The world is currently on a pause waiting for COVID-19 vaccine. It may come, it will come, but not the time frame what our enthusiasts were mentioning. Even Government of India made a mention that by August 15th we'll have vaccine. It didn't happen. Not even by the end of this year. It may come probably first quarter of next year, 2021. It will come. Not one, maybe two. In India itself, there are two companies, good companies. They are in the race. Serum Institute of India and Bharat Biotech. Biological events may come little later. But point is, when these two companies are going to roll out vaccine, because now Government of India allowed pre-manufacturing before the license. That's good initiative to save the time. When they're ready with each one, say 50 million or 100 million doses, they're not enough. Not only that, there are many issues. First of all, on price, at what price? Whether it's going to be 2 doses or not, we do not know. And there are many other questions. What is shelf life? Nobody knows. What is its immunogenicity period? We do not know. And whether, as Srinath Reddy suggested, whether already people who got COVID infection and whether they have antibodies or not, we have to test them and then give the vaccine. We do not know. So there are many issues which are to be thought about now. Unless we have those answers, the perfect plan will not come for 135 crore people. Now, as it is already, some priority was given by central government, saying that first one is for healthcare workers who are on the front end fighting with COVID. Fine, that is understandable. Then they said that people who are above 65, then after that, people who have some infections, and after that, below 50. But what is the system that is going to be adopted to segregate these kind of sections of priority? What is the methodology? Whether central government is going to do it or state government is going to do it, is there any system or organization or a structure to do this kind of separation and prioritize, make them stand in the queue and do it? And Serum Institute of India got almost 300 million, if I believe what I was told, $300 million to procure 200 million doses. So they were given instruction not to sell beyond $3 per dose. If they are going to do two doses, each one is going to cost around 550 rupees. But who will pay it? Government of India or state governments or people have to pay. If it is allowed openly, rich people will come first. They will, irrespective of sector, whatever you call it, this is a priority, healthcare workers first, and then say above 65 is the second priority. This prioritization will have no meaning when it is open for public. Whoever has money, deep pockets, they can go and buy it, depriving the essential people who have to get it. So it is very difficult to implement. People should think on this. The government, not people. Government should think about this and have a structure quite well defined and implement it appropriately. Then only equitability, the justification for prioritization, the needy people will get on priority. Then IP issues will come. Bharat Biotech didn't get any support, I think, from government, if I understand correctly. They are doing on their own money. But are they be allowed to sell at a cost which they can recover their R&D? No idea on that, no information on that. When one company got support from Gates Foundation, the other company is only working on its own funds. So they are at liberty to sell at any price to cover their costs. Will it be like that, or they have other ways of controlling? Price control will come into effect. If that comes in, the other people who are enthusiastic to spend money on R&D will be hesitant to do that. we have to have some clarity, and government should be transparent in making some statements. And they are comfortably saying only dates, that they are saying it will come in August, it will come by end of this month, end of the next year. These statements are okay. But basically, they should spell out the policy, whether it is going to be funded by the government. If government, it is central government or state government, or some people, prioritization people will get free of cost. The others can buy it in the open market. If it is not defined well, what happened recently when Remdesivir was launched as a possible drug for combating COVID, it has gone into grey market. People sold it to 1.5 lakhs, 2 lakhs. Do we want that one to happen to vaccine industry? These are very peculiar times we are living in. Earlier, no vaccine had this kind of attention, this kind of advertisement by media, and political people are taking their own advantage. Companies also are taking their own advantage. The other day, Pfizer announces, the CEO, that their vaccine efficacy is 90%. And next day, he sells his stock after seeing the rise in the stock market. So these kind of unwarranted, unethical things can happen in our country also. There should be a public policy clearly defined who is going to get it first, at what price, who is going to fund it, etc. And other things, technical, of course, I'm not technical, but I'm concerned. And the all clinical data, earlier we used to publish them. And nowadays, only press release is the answer. They are giving to press that phase 1 completed, phase 2 completed. But there should be some data on that. Earlier, our vaccine trials were reviewed by peers when we published them in a reputable magazines or journals. That is not the order of the day today. We do not know what is happening. So one day we hear that AstraZeneca stopped their trials because of some serious adverse event. The next day they said that it can go ahead. But what is the reason? At least we know that some people were found allergic to this vaccine, or it is not the root cause for that. They established it and they allowed the trials to continue. But that kind of data in India is not made available. Maybe they are reporting directly to regulatory people, but regulatory people in this kind of emergency mode, only limited people are reviewing and they are giving permissions or they are stopping it. But if it is allowed to be reviewed by other peers when they see it in the established journals, that will have more authenticity, that will be more safer for the human use. My request is that all companies who are in this business, they should publish their data as and when they are ready. When they have submitted to regulatory, parallelly they should do it to journals also, so that other people also can have a look at it. Then my other concern is, if we take minimum to cover all the people, at least in India, 135 crore people, take 2 to 3 years. In these 2 to 3 years, to maintain the serenity, the anxiousness of the people who have to get first, etc., they have to be told this region where it is pandemic is more, then they have to be given permission to have the first. All this kind of segregation is very important, because if it is made available after 2 years, the state or the place which is getting the last will be in anxious moments. They should be properly educated. They should be properly given information that they are getting their priority in the due course. If it is not done, it is another pandemonium we are going to create. It is going to be pandemonium. Now we are in pandemic, and pandemic to pandemonium, we will slowly shift to that. Some anarchy, some hesitations, some street shows, all these things can happen, because this is a very peculiar situation as I see COVID situation. It is not like that for any other vaccine so far. So people, I think, if you remember, in the initial stage of COVID, the protocols were not properly defined, because they were also learning, medical doctors. So they made several trials and errors. Ultimately, they have frozen a particular protocol, which is 70% or 80% right. Similarly, for logistics also, we have to go through the same trial and error. We have to learn things as we move forward. Professor Vishwamohan, he was telling that we will learn on the way. Yes, definitely. It is going to be not easy. We don't have any ready-made solution. First of all, if we define our problems by way of questions through the seminar, then people will note down and start working on that. zooming their attention on the problems and questions raised by these people in the panel. And some people should work on that. Bill Gates Foundation and these Gavi people, all these people formed a consortium, COVAX. They are thinking on this, how to transport it, how to distribute it. There are several issues. At one go, we require so many vaccines, 2 billion vaccines. To make 2 billion vaccines, so many raw materials are required. Cartons are required, the rubber bands are required, the labels are required, vials are required, seals are required. Whether the other areas where we have to get inputs, did we prepare them? And did we make them alert that we require at one go so many vaccines? So are you ready to supply all these things, whatever is going into the vaccine? And there should be some uniformity around the globe. Ultimately, the UNICEF, WHO, COVAX system will finalize 2 or 3 efficient vaccines, and they will ask global leaders to produce across the globe at 4 corners. They should be transported effectively to all the places. And this is a big exercise, and many more things have to be thought about, and then only our logistics will be nearly perfect. I cannot say perfect. So a lot of things are there to think on, and this is where I want to stop. I endorse what our Professor Srinath Reddy raised the issue. And these are main real concerns more than development of vaccine. These also are very important. If the vaccine is available and we are not able to deliver to the people, it doesn't serve the purpose. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for your deeply insightful initial commentary and this sets the tone for the panel discussion. May I now request Dr. Yella to say a few words for the panel and set the context for the conversation.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank Professor Damodar Acharya to be there as a chairman. And I think time is running out. I'll make it few bullet points. As a manufacturers, we don't just develop a vaccine. We also work on a last mile delivery, how to deliver this in the field situations. We have that experience. And my friend, Dr. Varaprasad Reddy, clearly briefed a lot of things. And I just want to brief some of the points that he brought it together on some of the issues. Peer-reviewed journal. Yes, Covaxin will come in 4 reviewed journals, articles will be coming. But it takes 2 to 3 months minimum for review of all the articles. So which are in the review process right now going on, and it will come, all the 4 articles on both monkey challenge study, hamster studies, phase 1 data, everything is coming out, all the things. So please be review clear that we are a scientific driven company. We want to have peer-reviewed, internationally peer-reviewed journal, and it is coming soon. Okay, that's number 1. And also, and whenever adverse reactions are, people are talking about, even some press people, somebody is even raised in the chat box why we are not disclosing. There is a clinical protocol, international Helsinki protocol is there that we need to follow in a clinical trial very strictly. We can't give every adverse reaction to the press. We need to give, first rule is their ethical committee of the hospital should be informed. And ethical committee, first we have to inform the Drug Safety Monitoring Board, DSMB. DSMB and ethical committee will be informed, and our ICMR Director General, ex-Director General is right there. He knows the protocol of this sort of ethical guidelines. We have to follow that, and then we have to inform the DCGI and subject expert committee reviews, and then all the process followed. But I think, everybody's kind of suspicious about Indian vaccine manufacturer or something we're not following. But trust me, one thing I can tell you, we are following international guidelines, not less than that. So the trust is important in the vaccine, and we are creating the trust, but just give us time. Because as a manufacturer, I don't have a backup like AstraZeneca Serum Institute has got. We are fighting alone. And somebody raised issues in the chat box. We got a lot of money from somebody. And I'm telling honestly, this Covaxin project, we are doing, as my friend Dr. Varaprasad Reddy said very clearly, we have not got money. And the question is, how do you realize that R&D cost? You raise a pertinent question. If we don't realize that R&D cost, we are not going to survive as a company. Nobody will take innovation. Nobody will take a risk in the vaccine field. And that's a key as a battle for us in the country like in India. And when we develop any vaccine, we always look at the public health system at a large, where there's 3 angles we look at it. Always, one is the vaccine storage cost. What will be cost matters. Cost is not just manufacturing cost alone. We also look at it, the packing cost, transportation cost, and delivery cost on the 4. And that's the cost of the total vaccine. I'll put together all the 4. We look at the vaccine storage cost, in-country transportation, transport from Hyderabad to Calcutta, Calcutta to Guwahati, Guwahati to Manipur, all that we work out the costings, the parameters. And per kilometer, how much it costs, per dose, how much it costs. And then we also look at the biomedical waste, what should be done in the disposal of those plastic in the final stages. We look at all those angles and we work at those sort of angle in the manufacturing. So I want to leave it because the time is running out. And so whatever the questions are there, but one thing somebody has got a negative thinking all the time, particularly some chat box people raise, we got a lot of money from there. And I want to say that we have not got any money from the COVAX project. So that's number one. And we follow the international guidelines of the clinical trial. Be rest assured, we are not going to let down that standards in the India. Being an Indian company, we are much more cautious than a Pfizer or Moderna. We are much more scrutinized. So therefore, please be assured on that. Thank you very much.
Many thanks for the clarifications and the specific guidance for so much more that the public has got so much more interested in the vaccine development. And thanks for, the public scrutiny have also become so much more. And then it is in that context, your caution in terms of there are protocols which are there. There is a DSMB board which will review, and then ethical committees, and they all will have the immediate opportunity to review. And then before we can raise an alarm to billions of people all around the world, because in the information age today, it can raise unwarranted questions. So it's very well received. Thanks for that clarification and then setting the tone for the track of the discussion. Just continuing with the subject, I have one, this is my personal feeling, and I would like Dr. Anand Fayal to react to this. In my understanding, for all the downsides that this COVID onset has actually given in this last 100 years, in this generation, we are experiencing it potentially, and I hope we won't have one in the rest of our lifetime. But the one thing that I feel there is a benefit that it has done is it has brought the discourse into the Indian vaccine industry and what it has actually been a contributor to the world in terms of the 60 or 70%. Silently, they have been serving the world children by about 60-70% of the world children by the Indian vaccine industry. But in my understanding, at least the stakeholders, governments knew it all the while. But the question is about the stakeholders, and then the average citizen at large have now got an appreciation of what the contribution of Indian vaccine industry. And in my understanding, that's one of the biggest plus for the industry. And the second is also in terms of vaccine as a public health intervention. It's a very cost-efficient public health intervention. And in my understanding, this general appreciation by the citizenry will essentially make more responsive governments and then making more vaccines into the EPI programs, potentially helping the disease burden to reduce over a long period of time at a very fraction of a cost. This is my understanding, and then I would like you to elaborate if you agree or disagree, or what are your thoughts, Dr. Anand?
Yeah, good morning, Lakshmi. Yeah, you have rightly pointed out the industry did do a lot of service in times of providing quality vaccines. And you may know that while there's a lot of companies around who have spent a lot of time developing focusing on COVID-19 vaccines, like at Indian Immunologicals, we want to make sure that there's no disruption in supply of already existing vaccines which the government wants, like say, whether it be a pentavalent vaccine or whether it be hepatitis B. Unfortunately, this year, I think the number of participants in tenders for the conventional vaccines has been much less. I think a lot of people are reserving their capacities for COVID-19 vaccines. But for Indian Immunologicals, we want to make sure that the existing supplies continue. And the fact is that, as you rightly said, that affordability, as you may know, this year, the pentavalent vaccine, we won the tender, and the price was as low as 17 rupees something. So to provide a vaccine for 17 rupees, which can offer protection against 5 diseases, I think in the history of medicine, I think this must be the most economical intervention that you can imagine. And so definitely, there's a lot of very good companies. We have a very good cluster in India. All our reputed manufacturers, as you rightly said, 60% of UNICEF suppliers go from India. And we at Indian Immunologicals also supply to more than 40 countries, especially the rabies vaccine that we manufacture. And we are also in this COVID vaccine race. But the approach that we took is slightly different to what other companies have taken. One is we took the most technologically challenging approach, which is to develop a live attenuated vaccine. So the advantages of live attenuated vaccine are many compared to inactivated vaccine or other mRNA or DNA vaccines, in the sense that it induces both humoral and innate immunity, and also the cost of making a live attenuated vaccine is much more less than making other types of RNA or DNA vaccine. So we have a capacity for about 200 million, and our first choice again would be to supply within the country. And if there's anything spare, then we would look at other markets. In the meanwhile, we also have some additional filling capacity, and from day one, we have offered it to other companies who are running short of filling capacity, if they so desire, that they will be happy to spare it for them. So in terms of other things that we talked about related to supply chain, today we are both a human health and animal vaccine manufacturer. Historically, we have established very good cold chain networks, especially when you supply animal vaccines. You have to reach very, very remote locations across India. So already a very good cold chain network has been established, and over a period of time, we have added a lot of other things like SAP, and also now with GPRS, like there's a lot of traceability about the trucks that move from places. We know exactly what location these are in. And anytime when all these, for example, if there are any deviations in temperature, it all gets reported instantaneously, and corrective actions are taken immediately. So I think as a country, I mean, I can talk about on behalf of all other vaccine manufacturers that there's no desire to, it's more of a social good and being commercially viable than just for commercial purposes. And in terms of science that we adopt, all companies have DSIR approved R&D facilities, and majority of the vaccines that have been developed have all been developed internally by the companies themselves.
Wonderful to know, Dr. Anand. And with your most, I mean, like many other manufacturers who are dabbling at it, your pursuit in terms of getting a very cost efficient, widely distributable vaccine is very well appreciated. And thanks for your thoughts on it. And taking a cue from what you said in terms of, so far as what all that we know from the media, and then there's a lot of expectation within India that there's the earliest the vaccine, when should we have it? I think all of us are more attuned to the media reports. So I would now want to ask from Serum Institute, which seems to be holding the race ahead. And Dr. Rajiv, if you would like to let the forum know as to when do you think that the vaccines would be available? Because of course we have lots of media reports, but I think it's no better than knowing it from the company.
Okay, thanks to all my panelist colleagues, and thanks to you, Lakshmi. It is so thank you very much. The question that you are asking is not a million, but maybe a few billion-dollar question. Having said, not only the public around, my family is also asking me the same question, whether it is tomorrow or day after tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, yes, the trials are getting over, but we have to wait for the safety data. Yes, the big efficacy trial data for the Astra product is running in UK, Brazil and Africa, and plus in India. So as far as India is concerned, yes, we completed the recruitment. The second dose is also getting over by month end. And so we expect that the efficacy data plus the Indian data accumulated and the DSMB report should be available maybe by last week of December. And that should pave the way for the availability of vaccine in the early part of 2021. I'm sure everybody is anxious, like me as well. But those are the practical things which we need to take into account. And then obviously the review by the drug controller and subsequent licensing, maybe audit and all those things. So we expect that early part of 2021, the vaccine should be available.
Oh, that's wonderful to know. And I mean, as an add-on question, do you expect any distribution challenges when your product is expected to be in the market in terms of, will it be any different? Because in terms of the programmatic suitability or large-scale intervention, like the initial comments said that this is going to be a vaccine for every person, not necessarily for other products which are only for certain age groups. So just wanted a little more elucidation on that.
I think all the trials that so far have been conducted, even in India, is 18 onwards. So anybody who is beyond 18 would be getting that vaccine by scientific means also, because that is why the age stratification for all clinical trials would be available. But in the Indian trial, yes, it was over 18, any age, and that would be the thing that would be available for practically everybody, but nothing below 18 so far.
Correct. And this is not necessarily only for you, but maybe other colleague manufacturers as well. But there is one general concern which keeps coming up from the policy makers is about how are these manufacturers how are they really able to prioritize COVID vaccine? And does this necessarily mean that will it deprioritize any other vaccines, and then will it deprive the program of any other vaccines? This has been one of the questions that keeps happening. So I just wanted any one of you can pick this up and then try.
I will take that question, which
Sure.
is very often asked question, and is it quite right to ask this question? So as far as we are concerned, nothing has stopped for routine. All those contracts which we have with Government of India as well as with UNICEF, they will go through. And maybe I have some other side to tell that whatever has been accepted as a contract, but there are countries are not lifting the required vaccine, and that is why there could be, I mean, no vaccination in some countries, not because we don't have vaccine, not because they are not taking. Maybe the prioritization for purchase would go for COVID, but from our side, there is absolutely nothing that would be short for routine. I mean, we should take it really with pinch of salt that you just can't say I will stop COVID death, but I will allow measles death. I mean, that cannot be the bargain that we are supposed to do.
Absolutely, that's reassuring to hear that. Anand, would you have anything to add?
No.
All right. Okay. There's another participant, Dr. Sivakumaran from Aurobindo. So good morning. And I just wanted to ask you this as a question, but obviously you can elaborate on it. I didn't mean to pick on you, but how is the companies are expected to finance? I mean, I did hear Dr. Varaprasad and also Dr. Yella speaking about this, touching this subject. But if you can elaborate in terms of how are the companies which are entering the vaccine field, how are they, especially in the specific COVID times, how are they expected to make the initial investments and get these vaccines? I mean, by the very nature, vaccine industry is investment intensive, gestation periods are long, and there are also allusions that are done in terms of there are some companies get the push funding and some won't, and then how is it, how this conundrum is best managed?
So as far as the funding is concerned, Mr. Lakshminarayan, we ourselves is organizing fully ourselves, yes, presently. Yes, 100%. And the whole question is that the whole project is a very, very unusual project, unusual process and other thing. And we were also in a very peculiar situation in the sense we were attacking three fronts we were attacking. One is our own research center at US. They are working on some molecules that we know up to what level it is going to come. Yes, some promising candidates have come. Yes, it will take some time. So we didn't want to go at that stage. And again, we have got a collaboration with CSR laboratory to help them out in scaling up and production. Yes, that is going to be another question mark because we have to take some time. And third is our own, we have got some discussion with already the innovators who are in the final stages who are about to launch and other things. So there also we are going to work together in launching the product and simultaneously do some phase 3. All these things, we wanted to take it up our own funding and other things. Perhaps now more clarity has come. Now we may have to approach the various funding agencies. I think now we will start it out.
Very nice.
Am I clear? Have I cleared your point or?
Absolutely, absolutely. This my question is to Dr. Varaprasad, and I just wanted to know your vision in terms of now there are different types of technologies and platforms, and there's so much of innovation that every company is trying to add a little value and then try and work on. Dr. Anand said he's working on a live attenuated vaccine, and someone else is working on some RNA vaccines, and then Dr. Yella is at the forefront of different kinds of vaccines. So how do you see, I mean, where convergence will happen maybe a year later when many different candidates will all start to arrive? How the vaccine space, rather the COVID vaccine will settle down, and then how do you see that the equilibrium will start to set in, and at what point in time?
Yes, sir. Your question, you used the word convergence.
Yes,
That is very essential in future.
Yes.
For example, most what you call, I don't call them rivals, but they are two leaders in their own way in vaccine field. GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, and Sanofi. They had their own markets, their own technologies. They're competing with each other. Such kind of people, normally they don't see eye to eye. Now they have taken shake hand. Rather in COVID times, no shake hand, only wish. They joined together to develop COVID vaccine. Sanofi is using its recombinant DNA platform. They are very good at that. And GSK also has rDNA platform, but they are very good in adjuvant technology. Both of them came together, most unprecedented times, an unprecedented thing happened. Now they are jointly working on COVID vaccine. They are adding their adjuvant platform to this recombinant DNA platform of Sanofi. And they are coming out with a very effective vaccine. They don't speak much. They don't give any press statements. Probably by June, July of next year, they will have authorization to sell it in the market. So in future, I think convergence of technologies is very important. And there is no need of 100 varieties of vaccines to come. We can standardize them, and people will come together, complement each other, come out with more effective vaccine, reducing the confusion in the market. There are 20 vaccines. People have big question, which one to use? Then it will become another pandemic. So the best way is to converge and form an effective 2 or 3 vaccines, not more than that. That will happen. It will settle down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And then my next question, this leads me to Dr. Yella. And this is largely about, this is a question that I want you to peep into the future and then help us a little more vision into it. I mean, Indian vaccine industry silently has built a leadership. And this I am also trying to contrast with the pharmaceutical journey that it has happened from early 90s onwards. I think pharma has built up the leadership in terms of US generics in the synthetic and small molecule chemistry, and they continued with it. But at the same time, by the time the fermentation APIs have come, literally we have lost the competition to China. So much to the fact that we nearly started to restart the entire thing as if we are learning chemistry now. The point what I'm trying to make a simile on this, and then wanted your vision of the future, is about how does the Indian vaccine manufacturing industry and the innovation industry, two parts to this question. One, how can we lead keep the leadership for the future, maybe next many decades, so far as the global supplier of vaccines. Second, this is by volume, which is what we have, and then how do we maintain it? Second is about how do we also move up the value chain and not just by the volumes and then the peanuts of revenues. How do we move up the value chain and also make innovation as front and center, and then move up from where we are right now? So I know it's a broad question, but whichever the way that you see it in the future, it'll greatly help all of our understanding.
Thank you, Lakshman. I think it's a wonderful question. I think, my friend Varaprasad Reddy said very important thing is the how Sanofi and GSK, two leaders of the world, are cooperating. It's a fact, actually. It's a very good partnership. And I think the vaccine industry needs a partnership. Let us look at it, Indian manufacturers. Why? Before that, I'll back up one thing. Why we lost a fermentation of IPA? Because of competition, IDPL, Reddy Lab, everybody started fermentation based, killing each other. And Chinese came and they brought down the price. Naturally, we all destroyed. All our industries are destroyed. Okay. And the same thing, what I'm worried about vaccine industry is today, the two things, the price erosion is happening. And my friend Anand Kumar is saying he's happy that he's selling at 70 rupees a dose vaccine. But will it survive the future of this country? I'm really concerned about it. And today, so unless we have a partnership, we will not survive. Why to make so many manufacturers? Like, let us ask a simple question in another way. Suppose if the COVID disappears by 2021 or 22, all the people who were invested in the vaccine industry, what will happen to them? Everybody will collapse.
Correct.
Just ask a simple question. And then by next year end, we'll have excess supplies of production and everybody will be having vaccines. Then if the market doesn't take up, what will happen? These two scenarios dictate terms on the vaccine industry in a different way. I think I fully agree what Varaprasad Reddy said, is the partnership is very critical. Somewhere Indian vaccine industry are shying away from the partnership. We are insecure of each other and that should get away and partner. Okay, let's share one technology. If I develop, let's share with the BE or Sharta, whatever it is, we share both together. Okay, I'll do the up to manufacturing, you take the clinical development, you will have a dossier with you, partner with it and make it. But again, I'm telling honestly, 17 rupees, less than a water bottle cost of this country. And I'm telling honestly, it will be in trouble. The vaccine industry will be in trouble in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. And I mean, either you or Dr. Varaprasad, any one of you can take, but I still want to persist with the question. It's not just the volumes that, 60 or 70% of the volumes of the vaccines and children globally, they take it, but how as an industry, we will move up the value chain in terms of getting innovation, because all put together, we may have about 20, 25 vaccines for vaccine preventable diseases in the current context. But one good thing that has happened is about this COVID has brought in the discourse, and then people now have a better appreciation of vaccine as an intervention for them, because they were all happy paying post an event. For life also, people keep taking medicines and then millions of rupees they are happy spending. Rather, if somebody has to give $1 for a, like you were alluded to, 17 rupees for a 5 antigen vaccine and 20 rupees is a Kinley water bottle. It's silly to say the least. And this is what is the downside of this. And I really want to understand from both of you, because you have really built this industry, like what has been Dr. Reddy's and then Ranbaxy for pharmaceuticals, and you guys have that kind of a leadership in this. I want to hear more from you in terms of how do we get up the value chain, be it the innovation or how the industry academia partnerships will help, or how the startup ecosystem will really make an intervention in terms of moving up the value chain.
I will take first 2 minutes, then my friend Krishna can answer.
Sure, sir.
Sir, sustainability is very important.
Correct.
Though we all originally with emotion started working on affordable vaccines. Yes, at the time it is affordable. Today, a movie ticket costs 500 rupees. It is 2 hours entertainment.
Correct.
And vaccine is a lifesaver. Why if you go at 70 rupees, people cannot afford more than 70 rupees, they can afford. But the same slogan, 1 rupee kg rice, is no more valid for this changing times. If sustainability is not there, innovation will not take place here. Innovation is from the other frontiers. We ever depend on other countries, no self-reliance, nothing. Government should step forward. Here the problem is with government, not with people or industry. I am openly telling government is shying away from R&D and innovation. They were earlier giving weightage in IT. They were giving some concessions if you spend money on R&D. 200% they used to give. They reduced to 150, 100, now 0. What is the signal they are giving to innovators? We don't care about R&D, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Make in India, what a kind of slogan it is. Made in India should be, not make in India. Everything is completed outside 95%. They come in the last stage of the product finishing, either to put a screw on it or to connect a cable on it. That is called Make in India. The entire innovation is done elsewhere, and only cheap labor for that they come here. They enjoy all the construct of the government, land, and free water, free electricity, everything. And what is the valuation they're giving? 5%. All cell phones, what we are now doing in India, their valuation in this country is only 5%. This should not be the criteria. Other countries, they spend a lot of money on R&D. They liberally give to industry. Not only that, they fund universities very well. And universities will evolve the innovation. They give the proof of concept to the industry, and industry further researches on that and complete the project. Our universities are weak. We don't have university. The vice chancellors are not there. How innovation can come there? And industry is not getting adequate funds. In America, National Science Foundation annual budget is $28 billion. Do we have that kind of funding here? Without investing on innovation, how do you expect any innovation here, sir?
Absolutely.
We have no labs for brain. We are very methodical, intellectuals, excellent people, but where are the resources? Government should come forward. They should invest more into science, more into education. They spend all the money on the defense with the fear of one Pakistan or one China. The future wars are not going to be missiles or the anti-aircraft, whatever it is. They are going to be biological wars like this only. COVID may be a war, biological war, we don't know. Spend money on education, universities, and science. Liberally fund all the industries. See, Moderna got $500 million from US government. What is that our government has given to any own industry here? No, they have not given any money.
Absolutely.
Gates Foundation came forward and given to Serum Institute.
Correct.
But where is our funding? Where is our thinking?
Absolutely.
Krishna, you can add.
Lead me to ask the question back to Professor Vishwamohan Katoch. Are there any policy interventions that you think you see from looking from the governmental angles in terms of how do we make this industry a bit more healthy? Because from looking at the global practice, be it Gavi or UNICEF or others, at least in terms of their larger vision, the healthy markets framework, where all the stakeholders, there is at least an allusion and a stated effort towards making stakeholders a little more healthy in the long term. But I'm not very sure with whether the enablement in India, what all are the thoughts in government policy making. If you could just interject, it might be value adding for the conversation.
Lakshmana-ji, actually, see, I've spent more than 10 years, in creating the policy documents so that, the industry becomes healthier.
Correct.
Because industry has to be strong.
Correct.
The industry has to be vibrant. Its returns should come out of it. So a industry which has to feed itself cannot survive. That's what the example of the APIs came, the fermentation came, because all my reports, they dealt with this issue only. So the self-reliance of the industry, the support from the government in all ways, whether taxation, the support to the R&D, the incentives, it's a huge list actually, which the industry initially gave, then we also collected and we also came as a policy documents, which the government accepted actually.
Correct.
But then the question arises, how much is it should be put into the practice as early as possible. Now, COVID crisis, everything has come together to streamline the systems, for the trials, for the giving approvals. But the point what Dr. Reddy is pointing out, that the support in terms of the money again has to be there. Actually, you have to find the mechanisms not for the COVID alone, for the all times to come. Because if you see, India has moved from a nation of traders to manufacturers to innovators. Now innovators back to traders. Now that process has to be nurtured by government. There's no question, nobody else can do it, I tell you. Okay? whether the government from where it collects the money, I mean, whether it makes the policy, so it invests into them the production also. It makes advance purchase actually. See, okay, this is done ready. We are going to purchase. We are going to invest into it.
Right.
So that health of the industry has to be made healthy actually. And the same way, what Dr. Reddy's point is, they support the innovation chain, from the universities, medical colleges to the industry together. So you fund a groups actually. So these are all in it's a consortium of 3 stakeholders, like the industry, the medical college, the state system, university. So you fund coalition, okay? So that means it's for a product, it's for an output. All those things have been captured in the various documents. I think the Niti Aayog is also seized with many of them. But the time is, that we should use this opportunity of today to put them into a action actually. So tomorrow it does, see, because ultimately what he's saying, that you cannot live in uncertain times. You have invested, you have shown that you can innovate. For example, they said Dr. Ella, I know him for so many ages. I know all the people who are there talking today. The question is, you invest into the ideas, you invest into a process, you and do it. The Serum Institute has done many examples. So that all of the people sitting today in the panel they have created their something, So then it's to be nurtured in a chain, and that commitment has not to be it has to be a very formal commitment. Okay, well, this is this is what the state system will do. This is what you will do, and this we'll get actually. So I think that's for the COVID also. There's no choice on that. But then this dream should not fade away. I tell you. But the point I think is a lurking fear in the mind of the people. As the euphoria goes, where we will be. Okay. That is a realism actually. So either the people will perish or they'll survive. But then you say, oh, we don't need it. But that it can't happen that way actually. Right. Ultimately, you purchase the guns. They may not be a war actually. Okay. But you purchase them, you invest into that. So this same things to be done for the health actually. Healthy nation is a must actually. So right from my years as a secretary to the later years, I've been part of 3 documents at least led by me. So my thinking is very clear. And when before I departed, the last report has been accepted by government. But then the question is coming of its implementations, how fast, how benefits they reach, how it becomes a part of the system. But today's questions are all centric on a vaccine and the current vaccines, which one to choose, how to roll them out. But the generic issues cannot be sidelines, I tell you. Because if the generic issues which are required for the health of the industry, a healthy, vibrant industry, which is honestly, you nurture it actually. You cannot survive. The nation cannot survive without it. I tell you, this is something. It is not a today's phenomenon of selling something or maybe 60%, 70%. That tomorrow you may be 6% on low. Okay, what do you do then? Okay, so you will never remain 60% all the time. This is an advantage for a time. Okay, but you may become 100% also. You may become 90% also. So even to sustain at 60% has to be driven by investment into policy, environment, number one, which is happening today, then money, then commitment to purchase and keep the nurturing the industry healthy. That's all. That's I'm very clear on that. No second line. Yes.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. It's just that government is such a complex machinery. Many times, lots of good work, people like you put it across. In terms of reaching the industry, sometimes there are operational hassles. Just to allude to the specific context that I was referring to, if pharma industry is about 24 billion or 25 billion, vaccine will be a low single digit out of that in Indian market. I'm talking about Indian market. And out of which the retail will be a fraction of a digit. Yes. Now, if this is the kind of a scale at which we are operating. Now, if this is what is it, with people wanting to, if 17 rupees, 5 diseases can be prevented for whole of a life, if that is what is the scale at which the benefit, the cost versus benefit equation looks like, there is going to be some amount of appreciation for it. But how the policy enablement can happen today, many of the vaccines for a retail, if they are in price control, it just doesn't cut the ice. Vaccines are being given free of charge by government to every last citizen. And however, transportation cost could be 100 times, but then if whatever is the vaccine, it's being given free of charge. But when it comes to the question of less than 1% of the volume to be spent to disposable income people who are willing to pay, it needs to be under price control. This we need to contrast with our atta, which is going to be essential, and salt. These two are so basic to human life. Those are free priced. An Annapurna atta, Tata salt can sell at 25 rupees, but 5 antigen vaccine, like Anand Kumar mentioned, should sell at 17 rupees because that is the way the prices are being controlled. It looks a bit somewhere policy articulation is fine, but how do we get this to be? Obviously, this is a COVID track.
Lakshman Energy, I think this question I'll answer in a very different way.
Right.
See, I cannot say how that 70 rupees bid that has been evaluated or assessed actually. But
Right.
to be truthfully, there is a problem. Okay? There is a problem. No, this kind of price fixation, if it's done by the government or by anybody who has calculated it, there is a problem. Okay? And what is that problem? I really don't know because I have not assessed that actually.
Sure.
But you know, the same way the price war in the industry, airlines, how they one after another they collapsed. Okay?
Correct.
You know, a price war has not to kill each other actually. It has to be it has to be something which is sustainable actually. So the same way for the vaccines, for the drugs, I'm telling you very clearly, the gold line is that people don't exploit anyone. So the price control is to say that industry, if somebody in the industry wants to exploit, they don't do that, but they survive, they grow. Okay? So that those are to be realistically assessed. I'm not a supporter of the choking the industry. You know, that choking the industry is suicidal. I tell you, it is not acceptable position actually, which now as an Indian, as a scientist, as a doctor, I will never accept that actually. It has to be realistic. But I'm not passing any judgment on any particular figure. But it has to be realistic. We have to see a growth of the industry. We don't have to see that. Let them go to hell. We don't care. No, you can't be that way. Yes.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. It's just that government is such a complex machinery. Many times, lots of good work, people like you who put it across. In terms of reaching the industry, sometimes there are operational hassles. Just to allude to the specific context that I was referring to, if pharma industry is about 24 billion or 25 billion, vaccine will be a low single digit out of that in Indian market. I'm talking about Indian market. And out of which the retail will be a fraction of a digit.
Yes.
Now, if this is the kind of a scale at which we are operating. Now, if this is what is it, with people wanting to, if 17 rupees, 5 diseases can be prevented for whole of a life, if that is what is the scale at which the benefit, the cost versus benefit equation looks like, there is going to be some amount of appreciation for it. But how the policy enablement can happen today, many of the vaccines for a retail, if they are in price control, it just doesn't cut the ice. Vaccines are being given free of charge by government to every last citizen. And however, transportation cost could be 100 times, but then if whatever is the vaccine, it's being given free of charge. But when it comes to the question of less than 1% of the volume to be spent to disposable income people who are willing to pay, it needs to be under price control. This we need to contrast with our atta, which is going to be essential, and salt. These two are so basic to human life. Those are free priced. An Annapurna atta, Tata salt can sell at 25 rupees, but 5 antigen vaccine, like Anand Kumar mentioned, should sell at 17 rupees because that is the way the prices are being controlled. It looks a bit somewhere policy articulation is fine, but how do we get this to be? Obviously, this is a COVID track.
Lakshman Energy, I think this question I'll answer in a very different way.
Right.
See, I cannot say how that 70 rupees bid that has been evaluated or assessed actually. But
Right.
to be truthfully, there is a problem. Okay? There is a problem. No, this kind of price fixation, if it's done by the government or by anybody who has calculated it, there is a problem. Okay? And what is that problem? I really don't know because I have not assessed that actually.
Sure.
But the same way the price war in the industry, airlines, how they one after another they collapsed. Okay?
Correct.
A price war has not to kill each other actually. It has to be it has to be something which is sustainable actually. So the same way for the vaccines, for the drugs. I'm telling you very clearly, the gold line is that people don't exploit anyone. So the price control is to say that industry, if somebody in the industry wants to exploit, they don't do that, but they survive, they grow. Okay? So that those are to be realistically assessed. I'm not a supporter of the choking the industry. You know, that choking the industry is suicidal. I tell you, it is not acceptable position actually. Which now, as an Indian, as a scientist, as a doctor, I will never accept that actually. It has to be realistic. But I'm not passing any judgment on any particular figure. But it has to be realistic. We have to see a growth of the industry. We don't have to see, that let them go to hell. We don't care. No, you can't be that way. Yes.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more, sir. I think we are coming close to the session coming to, but I really must thank for all the participants, panelists and the seniors in the industry speaking out their thoughts and peeping into future and giving us a perspective. And I'm sure I am enlightened on many of the subjects as much as all the viewers here. And I really must thank everybody to have such a wonderful participation. And as and when we are all eagerly waiting, as and when the first vaccine will be in the market, and we are all eagerly waiting, and our program machine, because in our internal consultations, one of the things which came up was also that in the last 1 or 2 years, the amount of large scale campaign programs that have got delivered, a testament of our, as a country, our ability to deliver vaccines to large scale people. But again, this COVID being for every individual, about 135 crore people, its challenge is one notch above, but I'm fairly sure our program machinery is all well geared up, and then we look forward to, and not just we, the 135 crore people, or even 700 odd crore people across the globe are eagerly waiting for all of us to contribute. And I must really thank you on this note for your excellent participation. Thanks for the opportunity.